Hello, welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about the design sprint. Specifically, we're going to talk about day 4 of the design sprint 2.0, which is the design sprint that has only 4 days. Day 4 is about running user interviews or user tests. We're going to divide our user testing day into 3 different topics: how to find our users, how to run our interviews, and how to conclude and summarize our results. Okay, first, how do we find our users? To find our users, we first have to have a clear understanding of what the objectives are. What questions are we trying to answer? What type of feedback are we trying to get from our users? We have to have this clear objective set from all the long-term goals and all the goals we set in our design sprint earlier on. With these objectives, we're going to create step 2, which is to create a very clear user profile. We want to make sure that the users that are going to be running the test are users that match our target segment, our target market. Because, for example, let's say we're creating an app to run a scooter rental shop. And if we know that our app is mainly for millennials, right? People from 20 to 35 to 40 years, then we want our users that are going to be testing our app to be around that same age and to have the same profile as our target market. Okay, we don't want to get users that are maybe too old or too young for our app because we're not going to get accurate feedback. This is very important, especially in the user testing phase, because we want our feedback to be as clear and consistent as possible to our target market. After we have a clear profile of what type of users we need to create an incentive plan, because people are not going to come to our test our app if we don't provide an incentive. Okay, we have to give them something. For example, let's say we're going to pay them $50 an hour for them to come and test our app. Once we have the correct incentive for our group, we have to proceed and create some type of flyer or some type of ad that we can publish on different social media channels. This is very important because we want to make sure that our target profiles are reachable. We want to make sure we're in the social channels, that they are present so that we can get to them and reach them very easily. Once we create, before that, I want to talk about maybe some of the tools that we can use to create these graphic pieces, right? Because if you're not a graphic designer, you might not be able to use Photoshop or Illustrator. So you can use tools that are easy to use, such as Canva. If you guys have used canva.com, I'm going to leave a link on the description so you guys can know a little bit more about this tool. This tool is very easy to use, very intuitive, and people that are not designers can easily create a very attractive piece to get their users. So once we have our piece and once we publish it on the social media, or we use maybe some other method to gather our users, people are going to start reaching out to us and saying that they want to be a part of our test group. We want to validate our users as much as possible so that we are consistent with our target and our market segment. And with that, we conclude our first part in this, which is finding our users. Second part is running the actual interviews. To run the interviews, we want to do 3 things right. First, we want to set up an environment. We want to be set up in a place that is very calm, that allows our users to be completely focused on their task. With this, we usually want to be, when they're running the test, we want to be outside of the room so they're not biased by any reactions that we might have. We want our users to be able to conduct and use our prototype independently. So for this, we're going to do the second thing that we have to do right, and that is set up the tools. We want to make sure we have the necessary tools to run our user interviews. Some of those tools might be using TeamViewer, which I'm going to leave a link also. TeamViewer is a great tool so that we can capture what our users are doing on the screen, even if we're in another room. Another great tool or something that we might use is we might want to turn on the camera so we can record the user, what they're doing, their facial expressions as they're using our app. And the last thing we want to do very well is the questionnaire. Once our users are finished running the demo and the prototype, we want to come inside the room with a list of questions that we have specifically designed so that we can get the answers that we want for our user feedback. We want to make sure we are very concrete and we ask the most important questions very fast and trying to eliminate as much of the bias as possible. Once we have these 3 steps, we're finished with our second general part of our user testing day. The final and the third and final part is the conclusions. How are we going to conclude and summarize our results? There's a lot we can do here, but the main thing we have to remember is that usually we're going to try to show and present our results to somebody who's going to be making the next step decisions. Somebody like a CEO or a product manager. So for these steps, we want to make sure that our report is as concrete as possible. We want to be very focused and only put the most relevant and important information. So how are we going to do this? First of all, we're going to list some of the most important questions that we put in our questionnaire, and we're going to write down what our users, their most important feedback was. We're going to try to catch trends. What are some of the trends that our users gave us in their feedback, and try to put those trends first. We're going to try to eliminate as much detail from this, and we want to be very concrete and very give the decision maker a very general overview of what's going on. After that, we want to have a conclusion part. For example, if we're running our demo scooter app, we want to make sure we put what is the conclusion from all the interviews we ran. For example, a great conclusion could be our app was good and the users were happy using the app, but they took a little bit too long trying to make a purchase in the app. So that could be a great conclusion that can lead to our next point, which is next steps. Next steps, we can go ahead and put, we should reiterate the design sprint to try to produce an easier to use user interface for purchases in our app. Next steps can go and range from a lot of things. For example, we can say that our next steps could be to go from prototype to start producing a final product. Another thing would be our next steps could be to redo the design sprint and iterate again. Some other final steps could be that we would like to include some people we didn't have in this original sprint in our next sprint. For example, we might want to include some other designers who have more experience doing interfaces for purchasing. These are all put in the next steps, and the next steps have to be something very concrete that we can be sure we can follow through. And with this, we are finished with our 3 main topics for running great user testing in our design sprint. Remember, they were finding our users, running our interviews, and producing a summarized conclusion report. With this, you have everything you need to run a successful sprint. So, thank you very much.